this midweek edition of Big Ten Today, fueled by Gatorade. Rick Pizzo, Sydney Supley alongside. Hard to believe just 3 full weekends remain in Big Ten softball play before we head to West Lafayette. Purdue hosting the Big Ten softball tournament May 7th through the 10th.
The stakes could not be any higher. You mentioned it, the West Coast matchup that might just determine who takes the Big Ten title, and how crazy it would be for a West Coast team to win it for the very first time.
We saw Oregon do it in football. Oregon and UCLA potentially in position to do it in softball. That is our big story, a softball showdown that truly can't get any bigger. Oregon, winners of 10 straight conference games, co-leaders in the standing, welcoming the league's other 12-1 team to Eugene as UCLA arrives riding a 12-game overall win streak. These teams rank first and second in pitching, and each are also among the top 4 in nearly every offensive category. 3-game series set for Eugene. Friday night here on the Big Ten Network, Saturday and Sunday on Big Ten Plus. Here are the standings heading into the third to last weekend of the regular season. Nebraska, don't sleep on the Huskers. They're at 11-3, red hot right now after sweeping Northwestern, the aforementioned Wildcats, and Michigan also inside the top 5. Both those teams are 9-4 on the year. But there is no question the winner of this weekend's series up in Eugene has a leg up when it comes to being the #1 overall seed and the regular season champ in the Big Ten. Let's start with UCLA and the 2-time reigning National Player of the Week, Megan Grant, who's hitting at a clip that right now no one in the country is able to match.
22 home runs. She's now the nation's leader, but this is a storyline where both of these teams have faced off now their 33rd season in a row. They're going to have to calm the storm of the bats like Megan Grant delivers. Grant had a home run in the last time they faced them, but this is a matchup where both of these teams understand what it's like to face one another. And you look at Lindsey Grine thinking, well, she might be a different factor, the ace for the Ducks that came from Virginia Tech. However, it was the Hokies that were sent to the Los Angeles Regional last season that end up ending this season of Virginia Tech. So this is 2 teams who are incredibly comfortable with one another.
And UCLA is not just Megan Grant. Yes, she's getting all the headlines right now, but her teammate, one of her very good friends, Jordan Woolery, hits just in front of her. Really, this lineup, this UCLA lineup, all the way through, there are no soft spots where opposing pitchers can feel like they can take a batter or 2 off.
Especially not when you look at their first 2 hitters who are kind of a perfect combination of speed and power. You have Savannah Pola, Jessica Clement, and then you bring in, as you mentioned, the big bats. Woolery hitting 3, who just has 2 less home runs right now than Megan Grant. Both of them equal for 40 home runs. This is a team that's incredibly explosive, 1 through 9, and then even hitters off the bench.
I know you mentioned Grine. Who else for Oregon do you think will be a key factor if the Ducks are trying to take 2 of 3, or maybe, obviously, their ultimate dream is at home to sweep away UCLA?
You have Elise Sokolsky right now, who's done such a phenomenal job coming in for Lindsey Grine, and she brings a little bit of a different perspective. Grine's going to live up in the zone with the rise ball. She comes in with the rise ball, but also uses her drop ball just as much, and then it's her devastating off speed. You look at her, she's got about just 20 to 30 innings less than Sokolsky, just as much effectiveness, throws in the mid-60s. Both of those 2 have been stellar in leading to Oregon to one of their best seasons ever in program history.
What about the home field advantage here? Because you know that, and we're going to hear from UCLA later in the week and Megan Grant, and I know they embrace being on the road in this kind of environment. But for Oregon, you have to feel like if you could set it up at the beginning of the year and say you get to pick one series that you absolutely have to have at home, you would think that it would be this series.
Well, especially when you look at this Oregon team right now is 15-2 at home. They love playing in front of their home crowd, and how could you not when they sell it out all the time? This is going to be a game where you're going to have to line up hours before, even just to get a ticket. You have star players on both sides. 2 teams not only competing for a Big Ten title, but are making a run and a case for the Women's College World Series in June.
Good news is, if you can't get a ticket, you can see Friday's game right here on the Big Ten Network as we bring you UCLA and Oregon. Our live coverage begins at 10 Eastern, 7 out in Eugene on the West Coast. You can see it on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. And as I mentioned, the Saturday and Sunday games can each be seen on Big Ten Plus. So we have the first and second place teams matching up. Meanwhile, the third place team, Nebraska, that's coming off that weekend sweep of Northwestern. First 2 games by run rule victories, and then Jordy Ball deals in Game 3 to give the Huskers the sweep. They're also swinging the bats really well. This is a team right now, as they get set to host Indiana this weekend, that's playing its best softball at the most important time of the year.
And I'm glad you put them on watch because they're now 11-3 after a huge weekend in Evanston. And this is a team where if one of Oregon or UCLA tends to sweep, they could potentially be at the second place in the Big Ten standings, rightfully so. They're second in the nation in home runs right now. 84 long balls by 14 different players, which is just unbelievable. And then you have Ball, who is doing generational type talent things. She now is tied for third in terms of wins and victories in the country, but also getting it done at the plate. 120 plus at bats. She's now hitting over 450 average wise. 14 long balls. She leads it off for the Huskers and then has a prolific offense behind her.
I know numbers are absolutely crazy. 457, 14 long balls, RBI after RBI. But I think the key is they're also getting runners on base in front of Jordy Ball. So she has the opportunity to drive runners in. And you start to think about what we missed last year after she played in just one game for the Huskers after that transfer. And we're seeing, obviously, why she was the most sought-after player in the country when she announced that she was leaving.
When she had to sit out last season, I talked with her coming into this fall. She said it was the best thing in the world for her. For a lot of these athletes, softball is your entire life. And she found almost an identity outside of it that's given her a lot of freedom to play with so much joy and appreciation for the game. You're seeing that shine through. And I'm glad you mentioned this lineup because Ball and nobody feels like they have to do it themselves when everybody else has been so hot. If you look at Big Ten play, they have 6 different hitters hitting over 400 average-wise.
Nebraska right now, one of those teams you do not want to mess with. Hoosiers don't have any choice. They deal with them this coming weekend, and they do so in Lincoln. So the teams giving chase include Michigan, who now has 9 wins in conference play on the season. Wolverines against their arch rivals in Ohio State this weekend. And Ohio State kind of very quietly sitting inside the top 25. We've discussed this during our softball coverage over the last couple of weeks. And Reagan Milliken is one of those players who maybe doesn't get the national attention of a Jordy Ball or a Megan Grant. But right now, what she's doing for Ohio State, we cannot ignore it.
16 home runs. She's probably one of my favorite stories because it goes to show Kieran Kumar and the type of offensive power she's already brought in year one. She's been doing it with players who've already been there. She had 1 career home run. Now she bumps at 15 more this season. She had 3 in a game this past weekend. This is an incredible power hitting lineup. They lead the nation 105 home runs and counting. The Big Ten record's 118 with Michigan back when Sierra Romero was Big Ten Player of the Year, hitting 22 long balls. So they're in very good company right now.
Yeah, Megan Grant, by the way, tying Romero with those 22. She's only 2 away from tying the all-time Big Ten record as we bring it all back together. Of course, you have to deal with Michigan's pitching staff if you want to continue to do that. Durkowski, Hain have been the 2 aces that this team has relied on and will continue to rely on for the rest of the season.
This Wolverines team has had 31 wins, 28 coming from either one of those 2 arms. They are a perfect pairing of vertical movement. You see the rise ball, the drop ball, and then the off speed that is so effective for both of them. They have started to go to a lot of splitting games, which just makes it even tougher for some of the best hitters in the country to have to go back and forth between the 2 of them.
So Ohio State and Michigan, it's just one of those rivalries. Doesn't matter really what sport. It just means a little bit more. But these teams are obviously both competing for seeding in the Big Ten, also competing for potential at-large spots in the NCAA. And these are really important games. A close to being ranked team against a ranked Ohio State team. And for Michigan, you could pick up important wins on the road. It would be really important for the Wolverines in their quest to get back to the NCAA tournament. Listen, I mentioned that it was a rough weekend for Northwestern. It was a tough matchup against Nebraska, but there's no doubt Kate Drohan wasn't pleased with what happened the first couple of days. On day 2, Riley Gredzelanek, who has shown signs inside the circle, really struggled against this Nebraska lineup. And then in the 3rd and final game, Northwestern just couldn't get the bats going. So right now, a team that you're very familiar with How do the Wildcats get things back on track? They're on the road this weekend taking on Rutgers.
It's also a perfect reset. Today, they are actually hosting a midweek game, which is a way to kind of have short-term memory, erase it right away from last weekend. But if there's one positive you could take away, it's Lauren Boyd continues to be a dark horse in the Big Ten. She was pulled early in game 1 of the series, came back through 6 innings, only gave up 3 earned runs against the Huskers, who, as we mentioned, have been red hot. So she's somebody who's going to continue to carry this team. Before this weekend, she had 9 straight wins for the Wildcats, as they're going to continue to lean heavily on her.
So we talk a lot about it, that there's only 3 weeks left, and we're breaking down the standings and what can happen. It's not long ago that you're in the players' viewpoint of this. Are the players looking at this stuff? Are they discussing what's going on, where they are in the standings, what each series may potentially mean for them at the end of the year?
Absolutely. You're always understanding where you fall in the standings, where you want to go, especially right now when it's crunch time for teams to either to be at the top or to stay within the top 12 to make the Big Ten tournament. However, I think Rhonda Revelle said it best to her Nebraska team. It's 0-0 every single day you flip the page. You have to look at it with that level of intensity every single game, 7 innings, and make the most out of every pitch.
Days are getting short between now and the start of the Big Ten tournament on the 7th of May. Great stuff from Sydney Supley. Don't go anywhere. Much from Sid still to come, including her power rankings of the top 5 pitchers right now inside the Big Ten. Make the transition, though, to spring football. Minnesota on Tuesday with an open practice. And the highlight of this one, how about Drew Bibber going up and bringing down the one-handed grab, the Purdue transfer at tight end, PJ Fleck and company, hoping he can continue to do that during the regular season as the Gophers look to keep up that unparalleled level of consistency that they've reached ever since PJ Fleck arrived in the Twin Cities.
It's not just the first, second, and third down. It's where you are on the field. It's the 2 minutes, the 4 minutes, the end of game situations, and here we are in April. You got to get really good at that. If you look at our records over the past however many years, we were 11-2 in 2019. We were 6-1 in one-possession games, finishing out games. We were 3-4 last year. That's still 7 one-possession games. If we're 6-1 in those games, if nobody cares, we could also be 1-6 in those games too. But 6-1, that's an 11-win season. And that's how you get to those. So we've got to continue to find ways to execute in those 4-minute drills, end games on offense, and then when it gets to 2 minute, we're on defense, go end the game, and then vice versa.
The biggest thing is just been perseverance, just through all the adversity in practice, ups and downs. I mean, I think it's just all coming together. Spring was really important for the running back room, and just the offense, just to get our identity and what we can do in the run game. So, I mean, it's going well. I'm excited to get going.
Our congratulations to Nebraska volleyball standout Lexi Rodriguez, a huge honor, named the winner of the AAU James E. Sullivan Award, given to the most exceptional athlete at the collegiate or Olympic level in the U.S. Award also recognizes character, leadership, citizenship, and sportsmanship. Rodriguez, a 4-time All-American who leaves Lincoln as the Husker career leader in digs. We'll make the short trip.
Great question, Rick. I think, twofold. There's no tackle, turnover, or touchdown that's going to carry it from last year into this year. I make that point to our guys on a daily basis. Next year we have 12 guaranteed opponents, but I have always said our biggest opponent is ourselves, right? How we handle our daily business, how we handle these 15 practices in the spring, how we handle the 8 weeks of winter conditioning and summer program. Those are going to be the indicators of our success. So we got to handle and understand what's happened, but also stay adjusted and focused on the future to get to where we want to be.
Always helps when you have guys back who know how to win. You return 18 starters, I believe, from the Citrus Bowl roster. Where do you think that experience and maturity kind of manifests itself the most during the offseason?
I also, as a head coach, we always enjoy players that return. But just because they return doesn't mean they improve, right? So I think to keep those guys hungry, to keep them anxious, to keep them a little bit on edge. Also, Rick, I would give Josh Whitman, our AD, a lot of credit. I was able to retain all 3 coordinators 3 years in a row now. To have a offensive, defensive, special teams coordinator come back with all those good players really is the foundation of our staff that I think will help us go to a different place. I'm super excited about the opportunity in front of us, but every day is a challenge in this building. Obviously, we're in a really new world in recruiting with the portal and all the windows and all the things that exist with that. So I've always said, Confucius always says, choose a job you love. You'll never work a day in your life. I know that we go to work every day, but I absolutely love what we're doing, and I think we're going to love the results.
Coach, I think I can tell you that's officially the first ever Confucius reference that we've had here on the Big Ten Network, and I'm not that surprised that it comes from you. Listen, you have some.
Well, it came from a $2.99 lunch buffet at Yin Ching Cafe in Iowa City, Iowa, when I was 22 years old, and been rewarding me ever since. Way beyond that crab meat rangoon I ate it with, so it's all been good.
Well, I remember those days too. They lose money on that $2.99 buffet when we're 22 years old, don't they?
I had about $50 to my name, so I made it last. I promise you. It was a good day.
All right, Brett, back on the field, you do have a handful of guys who are limited by injury. That's always a story during the spring. Unfortunately for you, I know most of them are minor, but you're getting ready for practice 15 of 15. What will that practice look like for you guys?
Yeah, we unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to phrase it, we had about 10 guys get postseason injury or postseason surgeries. About a half a dozen shoulders, had a couple ankles, a couple knees. All of those were done, but unfortunately, they're limited for us this spring. But we added 12 new high school players. We signed 21 high school players, I believe one of the highest in the conference, literally in the country. So we still believe in program development. But we also added 12 portal guys. So 24 new guys into our program. Got about another 9 or 10 joining us in June. But the guys that haven't played, so obviously Luke Altmaier, J.C. Davis, Aiden Lawfrey, some guys that have played a lot of good football, Gabe Ackas, Xavier Scott. We won't rep those guys in live scrimmage, but Friday night, our last game, our last practice, our last scrimmage, we'll have Big Ten officials here, and they'll get a chance to live American football as best we can. It's going to be a live scrimmage, tackle football, and we'll see what happens.
Seeing some highlights of Luke right now, who just took such a massive step last year. In what areas can he be even better this year?
Rick, I always say this, Luke is a very intentional leader, right? He's maybe not going to come in the room and have this quarterback presence that some guys do. Luke is very intentional. He's very deliberate. We had a moment where he spoke in front of the team this spring, and we have a couple things walking in our building we talk about every day. Do your job, work hard, be here, and put the team first. And he talked about one of those segments about working hard. Like he said, hey, I may not be the prototypical 6'4", this quarterback that everybody writes these paragraphs about, but I promise you I'm going to work harder than anybody on our schedule to be our best quarterback, right? And he knows, as our starting quarterback, if he's at his best, we have a chance to be really good. And I think that's the part I love about Luke. Anything that he did well a year ago, he's going to get better. But the things he didn't do well, as men, we always improve the most when we improve our best weakness, our weakness that we need to address the most. And I think he's doing those things on a daily.
Brett, in terms of the guys directly in front and behind him, almost everybody's back. I know Caden Fagan's still recovering from that offseason surgery, but you have a ton of depth in the running back room, the offensive line, those starters all return. What does that mean in terms of what you and Barry Lundy can do offensively in both the run and pass game?
I go back, history repeats itself everywhere, right? As men, right, we've worn jeans our whole lives, and they've looked different. Skinny jeans, big jeans, bell bottoms, green, black, brown, blue, right? Holy jeans. Football is the same. And when I was at the University of Wisconsin, we had a transition from Scott Colzine as the starting quarterback, who's now the quarterback coach of the New Orleans Saints, to Russell Wilson. And both guys won back-to-back Big Ten titles. But the commonality that both of them had was the entire offensive line was back. All 5 of those guys went to play in the NFL. We have our entire offensive line back, and I think all 5 of those guys will have a chance to play in the NFL in the future. So when your foundation starts up front with really good players, a lot of good things can happen. We got a lot of good defensive front players as well. Gabe Ackas is literally one of the best players in our conference. I think will be a really good player. Some perimeter players on both sides. So when you add the experience of a returning quarterback with other good players and a good coaching staff, usually that means good things can happen.
I'm glad you brought up Gabe because we get to watch him here in the Big Ten, and I don't think there's any doubt he's been playing at an All-American level ever since he arrived 3 seasons ago. What specifically makes him special? And for you, knowing the kind of work that he puts in and the kind of young man that he is, how nice would it be for him to get some of the national attention that I know we all around here all believe he deserves right now?
He had a lot of options. This world we're in right now, obviously, he could have went to a different place. He could have actually applied for his draft grade. His draft grade came back as a mid-round draft player, so he could have went to the NFL. But conversations with his mother, his brother, the people that are in his life, he wanted to come back and make this year special. He has done nothing but commit himself to everyday nutrition, hydration. Every time you see him, he's carrying around a gallon water jug because he knows hydration's huge. He looks like a Greek god. He just looks together in a better place. And his play level his intensity, his play level, his play speed. Brought in a couple other coaches, Trent Harris, who actually played for the Giants and the Patriots. Alex Panos are kind of a double-headed monster. They're coaching him. Brought in Joe Kim from New England Patriots, who is a pass rush guy that's literally helping everybody on our football team. So, but I would tell you the best story about Gabe Ackus, I just see a random tweet on a Sunday afternoon where he's driving by a Girl Scout setup where a bunch of girls selling Girl Scout cookies. They don't know who he is. He doesn't know what he is. He pulls over, buys the entire allotment of box cookies on their table, right? Acts like he's going to put them in his car, pays for them all, and then turns around but gives them back to the same girls and says, hey, why don't you resell them again and make double your money? And that's the young man we recruited, and he's never changed from being that. He's a great story. He's a great person. He's going to be a great player for us next year, be a great NFL player in the future.
That is a great story. It's also why he looks like a Greek god. He gave the cookies back, and I promise you he does not go to $2.99 Chinese buffets.
No, he did not, and I definitely would have kept the tag-alongs for sure. So, he's a better man than me right away.
Oh, we have the same taste in Girl Scout cookies, Brett. I love it. Let's finish here. I know you have games to worry about first, but when I looked at your schedule, how cool is it that your first two home conference games are against USC on homecoming weekend and Ohio State on Hall of Fame weekend? That comes up against the season last year that we saw and the fan interaction that you guys had inside Memorial Stadium that was absolutely second to none.
You know, Rick, you've been at this network a long time. You've been to Memorial Stadium and seen it. We're at an unprecedented high in ticket sales, fan engagement, really the involvement with our community. When we're out in it, not me as a coach always, but just our players, the interaction with our community is absolutely awesome. And last year we had 7 home games, won 6 of those 7. We have another opportunity this year, but you brought it up, right? We have several games. We open up with Western Illinois. We're going to come back. We're going to play a couple games before we get to that game. But I don't know if you've ever been able to say this, not only in Illinois history, but in our league. This league is at an unprecedented high. To have teams from coast to coast, Tony Petitti and what he's done in the office there, in the Big Ten office, to build this conference to what it is, to literally be able to say, hey, we have back-to-back home games against USC and Ohio State. That's never been said before. Oh, yeah, and we also have a game at Washington. We also are going to play, at Wisconsin in one of the greatest environments in all of college football, right? So it's such an exciting time to be the head coach in this conference, unprecedented level of 2 back-to-back national champions. Listen, I didn't win one. I wasn't at Ohio State, and I definitely wasn't at Michigan, but the chance that this conference has set the stage for has now been unprecedented. Oregon and what they're doing in our conference, Indiana a year ago, to show what they've been able to do. To have the new faces, Barry Odom at Purdue, and I know what he's brought to the table in college football. It's really a cool time to be in our conference. I know it's amazing to coach in, and it's certainly amazing to cover as well. Bret Bielema, always great to catch up. Hey, good luck with practice 15. Can't wait to see what you guys have to offer. Appreciate it very much. Have a great one. ILL. Women's lacrosse, when 7th-ranked Maryland clashes with Rutgers. Live coverage begins at 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific, only on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. As promised, we are rejoined by Sydney Supley, who has her Big Ten pitcher power rankings ready to go as we count them down 5-1. And we start in Iowa City at number 5 with Jalen Adams. She's a homestay kid for Iowa, somebody who's brought them to new levels. When you look at, she was the one who was on the mound when this Iowa team, they beat Nebraska, they beat UCLA, they beat Indiana twice. She is at 18 wins already this season. They have 7 wins in conference. That's already one more than they had the whole entire season last year. Meanwhile, at number 4, a pitcher that we got to see quite a bit of this past weekend, Taylor Tinsley. When she has it going for the Bruins, she can get in the zone, and she may not be the hardest of all the throwers we see in the Big Ten, but the way that she moves it around really seems to keep opposing hitters off balance. Especially when you look at how productive she has been in the Big Ten. She already has 6 wins since joining conference play. She was a part of the duo that brought this Bruins team to the Women's College World Series last year. She's able to work that rising curveball on both sides of the plate, which makes her so effective. Yeah, kind of the softball version of Greg Maddux, if you will, uses every single ounce of the plate that the umpire will give her, and you'll see her going further and further out if those strikes on the corner continue to be called.
And at number 3, you have one of her teammates.
I do. In terms of Caitlin Terry, now I couldn't do these pitcher records and not have a southpaw. What she brings on the left side, there's a reason why this Bruins team has been so good. Not only these two, but then you bring in Addison Fisher. They have 3 pitchers who have over 80 innings of quality work. Hard to believe the 2024 Freshman of the Year in the Pac-12. Now she's off to even better numbers this year in the Big Ten.
That's why UCLA right now ranks 2nd overall in pitching in terms of ERA and opponents' batting average. The only team ahead of them, Oregon, the team that they'll face this weekend up in Eugene. We'll get to the Ducks and their star pitcher in just a second, but at number 2, we find Jordy Ball.
The way that she is throwing right now, it reminds me to her historic run in 2023 when she was the Women's College World Series MVP. She is pitching some of her best right now. In Evanston last weekend, on game 1, she had 11 strikeouts. The game only went 5 innings, so there was only 15 outs to get. Then she followed up with game 3 with a season high of 14 strikeouts. Her vertical movement between her rise, drop, and her off speed, when they are at its best, it's reaching anywhere from a 6 to 8 inch break. Truly remarkable.
So we will see Terry and Tinsley, your number 4 and 3 pitchers this weekend for UCLA. We also see the number 1 pitcher, expect to see her in multiple games this weekend for Oregon.
Lindsey Grine right now leading the nation in victories with 22, partially because of how hard she throws the ball. She can reach speeds up to 70 miles per hour. Now, to put that in baseball terms, that's close to 100 miles per hour. It's less than half a second in reaction time. Not only do you have to react quick, but she's throwing the rise ball at 3 different heights. She has over 150 strikeouts and is one of the most feared pitchers right now in the entire nation.
I want to know where you rank among those Big Ten, but maybe not now, maybe a couple of years ago, maybe not now. You made the transition to this side of the desk instead of that side of the video. Great stuff as always from Sydney, and some more coming up from her a little bit later in the show. But the focus returns to football after the break. Wisconsin, like so many others, the Badgers grinding out spring ball, as the Badger football Twitter account said, working like a pro as the Badgers look to get back to the postseason in 2025. Affected by a lot of injuries, obviously, a year ago, breaking in some new faces, had a terrific offseason inside the transfer portal. Get to see some of those guys during the spring showcase this coming Saturday. And right now, we get to see the head coach of the Badgers, Luke Fickell, who joins us from Madison. Luke, let's start with this weekend. And what should we expect to see? I know the showcase can be a lot of different things for a lot of different programs. What's your plan?
Well, obviously we're gonna play, and there's not gonna be any restrictions and limitations. Obviously, certain guys, as you kind of get into spring football, there's usually some particular group that gets a little bit more limited. For us, it's been a little bit in the offensive line. So the nature of it is we'll try to match that thing up a little bit better with the defensive line because we got some older guys there. But it's an opportunity for us to go play. I think for us, spring football might even be a little bit more physical, a little bit more live action than it will be as we go to fall camp. So we're really going to use this as an opportunity for us to evaluate a lot of new people within our program.
And I know you had to make a lot of adjustments last year because you had so many injuries, as many as I can remember, affecting a team at so many key positions throughout the course of the year. How did that affect your offseason in terms of preparation, the players that you recruited, both traditionally and in the portal, and how you attack spring practice, as you just mentioned?
Well, I think twofold. When you lose your quarterback, you find out a lot more about your team. And when you have to do some things in some different ways, you do kind of expose some of those scars. And I think, trying to look at it in a positive way, that it was a tough season, and especially a tough, last part of the season. It showed us a lot of things, and a lot of things where we had to make some changes, a lot of things where we knew we had to address, in particular, get bigger, get more physical. I don't know that we would have known all those things had maybe not lost a quarterback. Some things can get masked in the way that you play. But in the big picture of it, hey, we exposed some things that we had to, make some changes with, and we were able to kind of, attack January and this offseason and do that. And we feel like we're in a much better place right now.
As we look at some position groups, let's start at quarterback. Since you brought it up, obviously Billy Edwards comes in, athleticism, experience in this league. What have you seen, not just from him, but also from all the quarterbacks in competition this spring, trying to be the guy when the fall season opens?
Well, Billy is the guy for us. And I think that was probably one of the things walking in the door that we wanted to make sure we kind of, expressed. And I don't mean that there's still not a competition, but we wanted him to have a chance to go and lead. right? And understand, hey, this is the guy we're putting in this position. There'll be other guys. There'll be other guys that want to compete. But we didn't want to hold him back from his leadership. And I think probably the thing that he's done as good a job as anything is just being a leader. And that's in many different ways. But if there's one guy that probably knows this team better than anybody, and I mean the guys in that locker room, it's Billy, and it's been really intentional in the things that he's done and the way that which he's gone about it. And that votes really well for all of us, and it really even votes well for all those guys in that room because they get to learn and they're seeing what it looks like done at a pro level.
And he'll be learning and working with Jeff Grimes, who takes over the offense. How significant, Luke, will the stylistic difference be from what we've seen the last couple of years?
I just think that for the big picture of things, we had to get more multiple. And, we know what the things we have to be able to do to be successful. And I think that really in this league in particular, we know we've got to be able to lean upon our offensive line. And I just didn't feel like in some of the things we were doing in the last couple of years, it gave us an opportunity to kind of put some more lean on that offensive line, put some more pressure on those guys. So the ability for Coach Grimes to come in, be much more multiple in the things that we're doing. We still want to be balanced. I mean, there's some things we want to be, build off of what we did in the first 2 years, but some things that we know we had to grow into. And I think just the idea of a leader, an idea that, hey, we're going to be more multiple and understanding how we got to, lean upon the things that we got in particular up front.
As far as up front, where is that offensive line group in terms of its evolution and ultimately getting where you want it to be?
Well, it was one of the deeper groups, but even as the season ended, as we got into spring football, we've had some injuries, and normally happens. I don't know that I can remember a spring practice where you didn't eventually get thin at the offensive line. But I think we've got some great leadership there. I think we got some really, really strong young guys that are growing and coming on. And I think the idea of, putting some more on their shoulders, right? I mean, I think the system the last 2 years was simplistic to the guys up front, when in reality, they don't want it to be simplistic. In reality, putting more on them means let's be a little bit more multiple and things on their plate. That gives us a chance for our older guys to excel, but also for our younger guys to be challenged to continue to grow always.
Luke, as far as skill players offensively are concerned, which returners could be ready to take the next step? Which newcomers do you think might be ready to have an early impact?
Well, I think it starts at the tailback position. I think we've got a group there that is going to be unique. And the two young guys, and Dylan Jones and Darion Dupree, along with Cade Giacomelli, who's got some, obviously some time here and some experience. But I really do think that's one of our most competitive groups on our entire team. And I think they're going to shine in a lot more of the things that we're doing. And then, on the outside, I think that Vinny Anthony has proven to us last year and the year before that his ability to grow and his ability to make some plays down the field is going to be big. And then Tretch for us is a guy that, we kind of pinpointed in the offseason that this is a guy that we, had to find more ways to use him and create some more space. And I think that that's what this, this new system gives us a chance to do. And then we've got some guys that are really competing on the outside with Chris Brooks and Jaden Ballard. And I think that group goes about 6 or 7 or 8 deep with Tyrell Henry as well. There are some new faces, but everybody thinks sometimes when you get more multiple and you have less wide receivers on the field at times, that means you're just going to, kind of pack things in and pound the football. But we have seen in the spring, and I really believe it's going to create more space for those guys and give them a much greater opportunity to make big plays.
Luke, on the defensive side, looking through the roster, it seems like you have a lot of depth at linebacker, a lot of guys competing to play at that position, which has been such a position of strength for Wisconsin over the years. Who's ready to make the biggest impact, kind of run the show at that backer position?
Well, I think Christian Allegro inside and the true interior backers is the guy that's got to continue to step up and really kind of be the catalyst and the leader of the defense in a lot of ways. And Tackett Curtis beside him. And, there'll be some other guys that continue to battle inside there. The biggest difference is really when you start to look at some of those outside linebacker positions that have been so good here, as well as what we've changed up inside. I mean, in particular across the front, I would say we've probably added about an average of about 25 pounds to each group, as well as a lot more length. And it was a real emphasis for us in the offseason to say, hey, if we don't get bigger and we don't get stronger, and we don't create more physicality, we're going to struggle in this league. And if you really look at us, those outside backers have gone from 240-pound guys to probably 285, 290-pound guys. And probably look a little bit more like some defensive ends, and I think that's going to give a different look to our defense.
Overall, what's the key to finding more consistency defensively? We know what you and Mike Tressel want from this defense, and it had moments last year, but I think the consistency, right, was the key in doing it game in, game out. So what's the key to finding that?
Well, it starts up front. When you don't have a core nucleus up inside, you start having to scheme everything, and that doesn't vote well as you continue to grow, because at the end of the year, you got to play your best ball, and you can't do that unless you have consistency. So everybody talks about the quarterbacks being hurt and some of the things that we went through, which happens to everybody, but in particular to us on the defensive line interiorly. By the end of the season, it was just really difficult to hold up, and because of lack of numbers and then lack of size, and that's where, to me, the consistency starts. If we can get greater consistency, which I believe we will and have, interiorly and on those edges up front, it'll make a world of difference for us defensively.
Luke, you have a pretty good-sized class of traditional recruits. You also have a transfer recruiting class that's ranked as third inside the Big Ten, one of the best in the country. I know about those rankings. You do with them what you will, because it's not just about the rankings. It's about how those players fit in to your particular team and your scheme. But what were you looking for specifically in that portal window in terms of guys to fit into your culture and your program?
Well, guys, first of all, they're going to embrace what this league is all about, right? I mean, like this, it wasn't hard to put that schedule down in front of guys that were coming in the January portal window to say, hey, I want to make sure we're not, fooling anybody. This is what it is. This is a grown man's league, and it takes grown men to play in this league. So if you don't have some natural, humble, hungry inside your mind and your heart, this is probably not going to be something that you're going to want to, embark on. And I think it started there, as opposed to, okay, how much bigger or how much faster? What are the specifics that we need? We got to find the right mix of guys, because, it is a grind, and this league is for grown men. And so, as we said, we had to get bigger, in particular on the defensive front. We had to get the right mentality of guys that were willing to come in here and attack this and climb this mountain that we know is in front of us.
Well, let's finish there with the schedule, that you brought up. Your road schedule is nothing short of insane. At Alabama, multiple-time national champion. At Michigan, national champion a couple of years ago. At Oregon, last year's Big Ten champ. At Indiana, college football playoff last year. At Minnesota for the Axe. I know you can't look at it like that. You can't look at it as a whole. It'll drive you crazy. You got games to play first. Is there a chance you lobby for degree of difficulty at the end of the year to the Big Ten Conference as well?
No, I don't think that they're going to take that into consideration, but it is what it is, right? We all know what we signed up for, and in particular, those guys that were, walking in or choosing to come into this program, that was a big part of it, and to me, in a lot of different ways, right? You can look at that, and it can either be a demotivator to you because of the nature of it, or it can be an incredible motivator to you. And for myself and for everybody that we wanted to bring in, the guys that wanted to stay in this program, if you weren't going to embrace that as a motivator, as something that you're going to put in front of you every single day to help challenge you, then you're right. It can get daunting, and you can start looking for some handouts and say, well, can we get a little bit of a degree of difficulty in there, when the truth of the matter is nobody's gonna feel sorry for us. Nobody's gonna change anything up. We just got to be willing to embrace and go attack it.
No question, no gimmies in this league. Wisconsin head coach Luke Fickell. Fick, as always, great to catch up. Wish you and the guys the best of luck with the spring showcase, and of course, look forward to seeing you on the field this fall.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Big Ten baseball coming up this weekend, including a couple of huge matchups. Iowa, Michigan in the middle. The Hawkeyes right now competing for the Big Ten regular season championship. But you look in the top right, it's UCLA and Oregon toward the top of the Big Ten standings, each inside the top 20 nationally. Mike Huff has more on what to watch for this weekend.
It's going to be number 1 versus number 3 right now in the Big Ten. When you think about UCLA going up to Eugene to play the Ducks, I am so excited to see Rock Chalowski continue his torrid pace at this point in the Big Ten. Halfway through conference games, the sophomore shortstop just continues to pound the ball, leading the Big Ten in 50 runs scored, not just hitting a cool 374 with 11 home runs. But the thing I also love about this young man, more walks than strikeouts. So when you think about what do I want at my number 2 hitter, I want my number 2 hitter being able to use the whole field, get on base, and let my 3, 4, and 5 drive him in. That's exactly what Rock is doing right now. The other big game, I'm really excited about the big series is going to be Iowa going to Michigan. Tracy Smith has to hold home court, and Rick Heller sitting second in the Big Ten right now, 10 games over 500, is thinking, I want a series win, and if I sweep, I'm going to be ranked. But when I think of these two teams facing each other right now, Kate Obermuller, in my mind's eye, the hottest pitcher in the Big Ten. 3 games in a row with 11 strikeouts, at least 11 strikeouts. Third in the Big Ten with a 2.18 ERA, but first in strikeouts at 76, first in strikeouts per 9 innings, second in innings pitched, which means he's going to go deep, which allows Rick Heller to use his bullpen very sparingly. And if he can do that again, he is going to set up Iowa for this great opportunity. And for Cade, the best part about this junior season is that last year had 70-plus strikeouts like he has now on the course of the year, had 40-plus walks. Right now, he's sitting at only 16. So that's the person I am most excited to watch in the Iowa versus Michigan series.
And you can see every pitch of that series and Oregon UCLA on either the Big Ten Network or Big Ten Plus. Speaking of Michigan, no surprise here, but still big news for the Wolverine basketball program. Danny Wolf, after 1 year, and what a terrific year it was in Ann Arbor for Dusty May, has declared for the NBA draft. Coming up Thursday, it's lacrosse night in Chicago. Northwestern hosting Michigan. Top 20 women's matchup on the lake. Our live coverage begins at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. You can see it only on the Big Ten Network in the Fox Sports app. A couple minutes left here to talk softball with Sydney Supley. We talked about the top of the league and those competing for the regular season championship. But remember, only 12 of the 17 league members will make this year's Big Ten tournament. So you certainly want to be among that group. And if you're a team like Purdue, the host of this year's tournament, certainly don't want to miss out on this event in your own backyard.
Right now, Purdue is the last team in. If you were to look at the 12th team in the standings, how crucial it is for them, as you mentioned, hosting it. And it's going to start with Mariah Poehler, who's been unreal this season, leading their offense. She's just hitting nearly under 500. She has 28 stolen bases. It's going to be up to her to get it going offensively. And then you have pitchers like Maddie Ellish. They have a tough schedule, though. You look at, they have Illinois, and then they're facing Ohio State and Indiana. So it's going to come with a challenge to be able to play at their host stadium.
What about Penn State, another team trying to make sure that they're inside that final top 12?
This is a Penn State team who made a lot of noise last season as they made it to the playoffs. However, they lost their battery pack before the season ever started. It's allowed players like Brooke Clausewitz to really step up. This is a team that's fighting tooth and nail to be able to be there as well.
Yeah, probably a huge series against Iowa coming up this weekend because, remember, they also have a Washington series at the end of the year, which you don't want to go into a series against a team like Washington needing to win 2 out of 3 just to make the Big Ten tournament. And Indiana is also among that group trying to compete to make sure that they're part of the Big Ten tournament field.
And Indiana is somebody who is red hot offensively, kind of similar to this Nebraska team right now. They are still leading not only the Big Ten, but the nation in batting average right now as a team. They're hitting nearly 400. And if you ask head coach Shauna Stanton, she says it doesn't matter how many runs are scored against as long as they are +1. They are averaging around 8 runs right now a game.
Their schedule next 2 weekends, awfully tough. They have Nebraska and they have Oregon. Of course, the traditional finish, it'll be Purdue and Indiana. So don't be shocked if we come down to that final weekend of the regular season between those in-state rivals, with both those teams needing to at least win the series to potentially be part of this year's Big Ten tournament. All right, for Sydney Supley, for Michael Huff, and for our guests, thanks to both Luke Fickell and Bret Bielema for joining us on this edition of Big Ten Today. For everyone at the Big Ten Network, I'm Rick Pizzo. Hope to see you again on Thursday morning.